Hi, everyone. Welcome to the August edition of the Shop Owner Roundtable. Thanks for you very much for joining us. The typical disclaimer, so we're definitely going to offer some experiences that we've had, but for your own personal situation, please make sure you consult your own advisors. And with that, we'll get ready to go. So as usual, joined by Chief Operating Officer Chris O'Brien. Thanks, Chris.
Matje.
And our friends from Jayco. So Mike and Ian, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And we'll switch, and before we get into the topic, we'll learn a little bit more about Jayco.
Sure, yeah. Jayco, so my name is Mike Schwarz. I'm one of the owners of Jayco Truck and Trailer. Jayco is based out of Denver, Colorado. It fixes semi-trucks, truck-mounted cranes, cylinders, and we have a towing operation as well. I'm part of a kind of an ownership family, and we've owned it since 2019. We purchased it in 2019 from the original founder. The business has been around for 30 plus years. We believe it to now be the largest independent semi-truck repair business in the state of Colorado, and we're pretty proud of where it's headed.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm Ian Matje. I'm the trainer for technicians down at Jayco. From my experience with Jayco, I started out as a high school teacher that was partnering with local heavy-duty and light-duty repair facilities, and that brought Jayco in-house for us as they were looking for technicians. So our background has grown from growing students to come out into the field into now in-house training.
Right, it's such an interesting story. I mean, right, a high school teacher now running training for one of the best shops in Denver. Can you guys tell us a little bit about that journey, how you got connected with the high school program, maybe a little bit about how that high school program started to be built?
So like pretty much any independent shop or dealership, we have recruiting issues. And, we've tried all the channels we could think of to find technicians that could better our business. And at some point we realized we needed to figure out what schools were out there to build partnerships with schools. And, there's the usual trade school, post-high school trade school situation. But we kind of lucked out. We found, early on, this high school in the Adams County school district, the Adams 12 school district, which is, it turns out, 7 miles up the road from our current shop. So literally we're right off of Washington in Denver, and it's 7 miles north of us. And this particular school district realized they needed to double down on the trades, probably something new this generation. And they built a multi-million-dollar facility that has 7-ish trades in it, including firefighting, ambulatory, chef, woodworking, welding, and literally a bona fide diesel repair. They have this beautiful, roughly one bay shop there with some of the best tools and equipment that we've seen, in some cases better than what we have in our shop. So we met the school. They were very interested in working with us, and we realized we found something really special here. And the students were the kind of the right temperament and personality of what we were looking for. They had a great program and teacher and curriculum, and we started getting involved to the point where we now sponsor the school. The students all wear our uniforms, so they've got Jayco on their sleeve. We send our technicians in to do training, and of course we run an internship program. So the other owner of Jayco sits on the board, curriculum
advisory committee,
curriculum advisory committee, and we run an internship program where we kind of, because of all this partnership, we get to kind of pick the cream of the crop every year, bring them in. We pay them real money over the summer as high school students to work with us. We probably take in a target of about 6, and then our goal is to hire a handful of them full time when they graduate. They spend 2 years in the program, and then we hire them straight out, and we pay them real money. We give them a tools allowance. And we kind of treat them like they're part of the family. So as we did this, I think Ian asked at the end of last school year, could he come and work with us? And I think he said something silly like he can come for free. And we were like, well, of course we'll bring you on and we'll pay you. And over the course of the summer, Ian started gesturing that he wanted to leave the school, and we were gesturing that we didn't want him to do that because we thought it would jeopardize the relationship with the school. But once we realized he was serious about leaving, we realized, the only place he could come to was us. That we wanted to make sure that he felt that this was the place he needed to land, and so the summer was spent kind of assessing each of our technicians and building like a gap analysis of where they are and where we want them to be. And so we wanted to, if we were going to hire him full time, it's like, let's build a bona fide training program that, and Ian can dive into a lot more details, but literally, does an assessment of the tech, talks about where we want them to be over the next 5 years, and then a very specific curriculum based off of national procedures, agreed upon procedures, and then start to tie that to their comp and their review process and all this other stuff. And so, Ian's now knee deep in this as he's transitioned to full time with us.
Yeah. As far as the school itself and how that was run, that program, the diesel program itself at the school, started 9 years ago now. They've had an automotive program since 1974. So really well-known program in the state of Colorado. But as far as the diesel side of things, that was really new to them. So when I was hired on, it was completely built from scratch. Like, we have no idea. There's no set curriculum. What do you know the technicians need to know? At that point, I was 15 years into the industry as a professional technician. So it came down to, what did I wish I knew when I came in, right? So building that in, making sure that it was staying on top of industry trends. But what it came down to, and this is how I met Mike and Austin, is the realization that, okay, I have a training program, so what? Like, where are these kids going to go when they're done? And, knowing the need in the industry, the point was to bring industry in to where they can modify my curriculum because they're seeing the changes and the new stuff coming out, what needs to be fixed every day, and thereby affecting what the students were getting. But that relationship allowed us to not only train better students, but to give them a pathway after high school. So the program started out with just a year one program where it was 10 hours a week for students, and it was year long, but that was really it. They got bumper to bumper basics, and then they moved out in the world. There was so much interest in that program within a year of that program starting that it went into a level 2 where they're doing high-level diagnosis. They're doing component teardowns and rebuilds and failure analysis, where they're then into a third-year program now, which JACO helped us coin, where students are going as their seniors, finishing their normal core classes during the day, and then 11 o'clock they're going to work and they're getting paid. So it's a year-long working interview, basically, where at the end they either get hired on or they move on to a different component. But for an opportunity like that, to be able to fill a need in the industry as well as fill a need of the upcoming generations, right? It's an awesome opportunity.
So a couple of live questions already as you bring those things up. Everybody wants to know how do you go about doing some of these things. So two quick ones. You can be as specific or as general as you want with these. But what kind of money? Kid comes in for the summer. Generally, what kind of money are you talking about them getting paid for that summer work?
More than the kid that goes to Chipotle, which I think pays $17 an hour in Colorado.
Yeah.
More than that.
All right.
So real money, it's probably close to $20 an hour. And then out of when they graduate, the first batch, which is now 2 years old, I think, they started at 27 with a $4,000 tools allowance.
That was the very next question. What kind of tool allowance do you give? So about $4,000.
Yeah, that's what we started with.
That's impressive. That's a win-win for both folks. It's not like you feel like you're donating blood and not being able to keep the lights on, put fuel in your own car or fix the car, repair your car, et cetera.
By the time, if they've spent at least a year with us, they are productive and efficient team members when they start. Yeah. And they're worth the money, right? And in that, I don't know what it's like in other markets, but in that particular market, they're worth every penny of that.
Yeah. Are you getting some sort of so I'm interested in a summer internship. What kind of commitment as a student do they have to make just for the summer, or are you asking them for a longer term commitment to work with
Just
you in
for
the
the
program? just for the summer.
Yeah, and we'll work with them throughout. And we've gotten that. We've gotten people outside of the high school reaching out. And I think it was through recommendations of other schools. But we know this guy is great. Would you consider hiring him as an intern? And we'll go do it. And we're kind of looking for the summer.
So that's it's a two-way street. You're not holding them hostage and then treating them a different way. You're working together to say, we're a great company. You're somewhere you want to work. This is where you want to be. We want you here. And that seems like you would get some pretty qualified candidates that way, like the people that actually want to work and do a good job, no animosity.
I'm not sure I think we need to figure out how to market this a little bit better to get the word out. We actually got advice on this, and I think we're getting closer on this advice with what we're doing with Ian. But when we went to TMC, training is like the whole thing out there. And they told us you want like a camp counselor for your kids. So you want someone that's not your best tech, because they often don't know how to teach, but you want someone that treats them like they're part of a club and this is a system, and you work with them and you kind of invest and engage like a teacher does, right? And so that's part of it. So for us, there's plenty of ways to improve on this, but this is a family, you're part of this family, and this is what we do with you.
Yeah, why would they leave?
Yeah, it also comes down to just being a face of what's going on around you, right? Because if you want to, the average that I've seen as far as other companies coming in for partnerships is, okay, I'm coming in, it's like April, I want to hire your kids. Well, who are you, right? Like there's no, a partnership is two-sided. Oh. If you just come in and walk in, these students are really reliant, and people in general, right, are really reliant on relationships. If you ask something of somebody and you have no idea who they are, they've never seen you before, it's really unlikely that they're going to, okay, well, so what can you offer me? Like what's my work environment going to be? Versus when you have, when you come in and you donate that time, right, where you're doing lessons on diagnostic process or brakes, tires, whatever it is that you want to come in and present, right? Those students are seeing firsthand what you're about, what you can offer them as far as knowledge and potential ability, and that's what gets them excited, right? But that's most people, right? If you just hear a name, unless you have some background, it means nothing to you. Mm-hmm. So really getting your name out there and your business out there to those potential opportunities or technicians is really where it's at.
And they're producing billable hours, and you're paying them like they're producing billable hours. So you're not trying to shortchange them. You're actually straight up giving them solid wages, where some of them, their siblings, maybe their parents don't make that much.
Yep. I would say the relationship is usually they're apprenticing, and there's a kind of quasi-curriculum now where they work through things, right? So they're paired up with a senior mechanic to go work on a specific job. But yes, they're involved in billable hours. They're not driving trucks. They're not driving forklifts. There's certain types of things that you can't ask someone that's less than 18 to do. But yeah, this is real work for them.
Yeah,
that's really neat. When you think about bringing those kids in, a couple people are just interested, how many full-time techs do you have? And how do you try to keep that ratio between full-time techs and interns?
We don't think about the ratio too much. There's roughly 25. So we have roughly 50 employees. The facility is about 20,000 square feet. We can pull in about 16 trucks at a time. And we run on 2 shifts. And so we have roughly 25 techs, and we're very comfortable hiring 6 or more of these interns for the summer, and they actually spread across the 2 shifts. So, because they have preferences about other things that they are involved in. And then the school year, it's a little different and whatnot. So, whatever that ratio is, 6/25, and that's very comfortable. And you're basically, they kind of club together a little bit, and you're basically interviewing them through this process.
Yeah.
Right?
And to the point, and they're interviewing you a little bit, trying to see, is this a place I want to work? I would imagine that the retention rates or turnover rates for people who have come to you through that internship program might be lower than just a tech that comes in off the street. Have you seen that? Or are the turnover rates any better with people that come through this kind of program?
We do not I answer this? We don't have a huge retention issue for quality technicians, both at the intern or the and there are people that come and go, but it's usually a mutual. Okay, didn't work out. See you later. So I mean, the original batch of kids that we brought on full time almost 2 years ago now are still there, and we don't see any. We treat them well. They go through our raise process. We're actually looking at this concept of a bench in terms of leadership and management, and their names come up, and it's wow, they're so young. How could we consider them for that? But their names pop up on that bench. So yeah, it seems to be that they stick. They're sticky.
You have a good program though. You referenced it, the increase program. You were saying we were chatting last night, and talk to us about more on what is the review cycle? Is it once a year when they complain? When do you actually give folks money, and do you differentiate between one of these kids and a senior tech on how you give raises?
We have a tech raise sheet, and we do reviews every 6 months. So it starts in March and it starts in October. It takes about a month, and everybody knows about this cycle, and everybody knows kind of when it's happening. And we look at the last time they got a raise, what that raise was, and we set the expectation that they have the opportunity to get a raise every 6 months. And what we're gonna do, one of the and so they're all invested in that, right? And basically our raises every 6 months are anywhere from $1 to $3 and sometimes $0. But what we're gonna do is create this leveled path for each of our technicians, and we're going to start to set the standard, kind of like a first-rate consulting firm, that we expect you to work up this ladder of training and certification with us, and that is going to affect your raise potential. So if you're not moving up the ladder, it's probably $1 every year. If you are moving up the ladder and you're moving fast, I could see $2 to $3 every 6 months for the right technician. Right. And there's no reason why a really ambitious, high aptitude, just out of high school technician after 5 years isn't pushing kind of the bounds of top techs. And we've seen it. We go to state competitions, we go to the national competition, and these technicians, the Colorado tech comp, the annual tech competition, we took first place. It wasn't one of the high school kids, but I think it was fourth place was one of the high school kids.
Yep.
So we took top 8 positions. We didn't get second place. We beat the guy who won it last year. And some of those 8 positions were the high school kids.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah. I don't know if I actually answered the question.
So you're doing semi-annual comp reviews,
there we
but
go.
you're also doing more than just change in pay. You're actually sitting them down and walking through goals and objectives that you've gone through.
They get feedback on efficiency, utilization, attitude, all that kind of stuff.
And then I'm a part of that now as well, where, okay, how many trainings have you gotten done in the last 6 months? Where are you at on your, pipeline to becoming a B or an A tech? So it's really purposeful in our culture that this is what we do, right? We want to make you better.
So a little bit of background for the owners that aren't familiar with the consulting and law industries, right? Those big, Accenture consulting firms have this thing called up or out. And the way that works is it's a little different now than it was 15 years ago, but they hire out of college, they put them through 9 weeks of training. And then there's this expectation that every 2 years they move to the next level. And the target is, with Accenture, used to be by the time you're in your mid-30s, you become partner. And there's a lot of comp associated with partner. But not everybody can get there because they either don't have the will and fortitude and aptitude that are required to make it up that ladder. And so what we're trying to do is model something similar to that. Here is the path to get to be an A tech. You can do this in 5 to 7 years. Here's the trajectory, here are the certs, this is what it should look like. And we're not gonna say goodbye if you're not working up it, but this is our expectation, is that you will. And if you do, here's the comp that you can get at this top level, right?
Yep.
Which is competitive with all the dealerships and, all that kind of stuff.
Baked in.
Oh, good.
I was going to say baked in succession planning. It's a clear path with a purpose and a mission. And if this is what they want to do, you've laid it out versus just aimlessly coming in every day and hoping you give me a raise every 6 months.
Right.
When you think about especially the comp, and within 5 to 7 years after getting out of high school, the comp level you can be at, that's such success that a kid has the chance to accomplish. How do you think about like marketing that to the high school kids to get them to get involved in the program in the first place? A couple of people have made comments around, well, we have similar programs in our town, but the enrollment is just nil. It's just so low. How can we do better at driving interest from these kids and making them aware of how good an opportunity is to join a program like that?
Right. And that comes down once again to, as a shop, investing that time into those programs. Because once again, if they never see you, how are you going to get technicians, right? So that partnership goes along with, you need to be a face of that program. You need to be a part of an advisory committee and go to school board meetings where these top echelon of the school districts understand that this is a need in our community, and what you're doing with your program is great, but let's make it better, right? Because if you can't get somebody, like I've seen several places have open positions for several years looking for a technician now versus making their own. So I think that's where we need to shift it, is to let's make our technicians and get them before they're out of state, right? Because that's one of the things too, is some of these markets are pretty expensive to live in. You can't get somebody from Nebraska to move to Colorado and make, a living wage. They're going to realize that they're spending 3 times as much. Yeah. So getting someone who's in your area, who is already accustomed to it, the family is there, that creates retention too, right? And on top of that, it's really buckling down into being a partner for those programs to get your students and or technicians in your door. So really making sure that conversation is there, and that willingness to work with these higher level entities in the school system to make that happen.
And we probably have some work to do there. Like, the mere point of you asking the question is like, oh, well, we should do this, this, and this from a marketing standpoint, engaging these students and leaving them with literature that kind of is like, this is cool, this is what you can make, here's what the career path is, and here's our camp that you could join, type of thing. So I think there's probably more work there.
Well, we're just all trying to attack this fallacy that some kids have these days of, the path to success is this way, and making sure they understand all these other great paths to highly successful careers.
And I think we are fortunate. Jayco is fortunate in the sense that we're 7 miles south of this particular school system and facility. My understanding is other school systems from other states are hearing about this facility, touring it, and recognizing that they need to do better in this whole, there are other paths besides college, messaging. And so we just happened to be near it. We found it, and they were very receptive for us to work with them.
You're also sending technicians. You're engaged. You're sending technicians to the school to help facilitate the training versus just showing up trying to pick up kids.
We do a lot of stuff. So we drop off abandoned trucks that they can work on. We even, I don't exactly know how this played out, but we even couldn't fix a truck. And we called him up and we dropped the truck off and they fixed it. And
by the end of the day,
involved in that?
Oh yeah.
By the end of the day, and we had spent weeks on this. Like, this was a pride thing. We didn't, it wasn't like, oh, let's go see if they can figure it out. Like, we couldn't get it done.
Everybody's gonna want to know what was wrong with it.
Yeah.
Do you remember that one?
Yep, 7.3 with plugged fuel socks in the tank.
Oh, jeez.
And so, but the kids were involved in this, right? Yeah. And so now they're fixing a truck that the shop couldn't fix.
Wow,
that's incredible.
That's pretty cool.
But that goes to building better technicians at that level, right? Because you're already setting them up for success because you're giving them real world application and real world problems versus them just, okay, here's the same engine that the last 20 years of kids have taken apart. You're not going to be touching a motor when you get out anyway, but we're going to do it, right? So a lot of it comes down to that integration of industry into the advisory committee side of things, where this is what we need technicians to be able to do, and affecting that curriculum, and then having that warm handoff of, hey, here's something that is sitting on our lot anyway. Let's take a look at it and see what your kids can figure out.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
A couple of people asked a similar question here around the expectation that some of these kids might have. In all the time that you ran the program, did you ever have a kid come out of the program, say, I want to have a job, and not be able to find one?
No.
So they might not get a job with you because you're only going to hire 6, and you're going to try to get the cream of the crop, but everyone who comes out ends up with a job.
Anybody who comes out and wants to continue in the field, absolutely. We've had, so how Colorado runs these programs, CTE programs, career and technical education, is that the program, for it to exist, has to have advisory committee meetings at least twice a year. We ended up having them once a month because we had so much engagement with our partners. We would have 30 plus industry partners show up to these meetings once a month. On top of that, we would also have, we're required to have a partnership with a college, so concurrent enrollment credits. So that way there was multiple options for students. They didn't just have to go into the industry, they could go to college, finish their degree, go another pathway. So that was the really cool option there. Students actually ended up finishing the program, if they stayed there for 2 years, getting a quarter of their associate's degree done for free.
Wow.
On top of potentially getting a high wage, high demand job.
Is this the pipeline for all of your new hires, or do you hire some experienced techs as well?
We hire experienced techs. We actually, I forget how we at a conference we found, and we do the whole Indeed thing, spend a ton of money on it, and we get almost nothing of value. And honestly, I'm not sure any of them have ever lasted with us. But we did find a placement firm that is very reasonable, that we will hire through, and they have actually produced a few folks that have been very useful for us. But yeah, the one problem we have with this is that we are still 3 to 5 years out of getting to like a B+, A- tech with this batch. And so we still need to fill that void as we grow. But if we fast forward this whole program 5 years, there will be some of these techs will end up being A techs for us. And then the pipeline is the wheels moving and the pipeline's there. So we entertain other avenues, but this is pretty fruitful for us.
Some of that transparency is so important. And if someone wanted to clarify, when you're providing some of that expectation and what the career path looks like for a new tech, do you lay out for them the different pay levels? And I'm going to tell you, in 1 year I could have you here, in 5 years I could have you there.
I don't know if we've been that explicit, but we have told them, like, that guy over there, he makes this amount, right? And in 3 years he's going to make that amount, right? So we've been pretty explicit about, like, you can be in the 50-ish range at, this point in the future.
I mean, that's so refreshing, I think, for people to hear, because I think a lot of businesses, not just repair shops, hide behind like, oh, it's secret. I got to keep it close to the vest because I don't want you to know how much you could make, because then you might have an expectation that I have to give it to you. Yeah. But people want, every business, like the more transparency they feel like you're giving them, the more trust there is.
Well, we didn't really talk about this part. So I said we bought the business, but I don't come from the industry. I come from corporate America. I come from tech. And at some point I had the itch to own a business, and it turned out to be this one. But when I was, just out of college, walking around Sun Microsystems, I thought about, what does that guy make? What is the potential to be here? And they had salary bands. You kind of had some insight into it, but I think it's fair game for people to understand what the potential is and where they could be, and it, for the right person, inspires them.
Yeah,
like skills-based reward versus just time in.
Yeah.
So you go to a big business, 100-year-old company, it's just time.
Yeah.
They've neutralized everything, whereas this is all just skills. If you want it, take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where our training program has changed that, where it's not just your time invested or your attitude and things like that. It is, where have you moved on this curriculum? What have you done to better yourself, right, and your abilities? And that goes back to kind of some of the student side of things too, is in our expectations, is you don't always have to say, all right, well, the industry is trending to, you're going to make $50 an hour in 7 years. Like, that's not going to be realistic for everyone. What is realistic for everyone is what they're going to be doing in that job to get themselves further up, right? Set the expectation, and especially, I'm not going to throw names out here, but there's a lot of technician training programs that the kids think they're going to be coming out and tearing down $60,000 engines. It's just not realistic, right? Not viable for a company either, having somebody that green doing that. So setting the expectation where you're going to start out doing basic jobs, you're going to be doing brakes, you're going to be doing tires, you're going to be cleaning the shop. But the better you get at that and the more skillful you are at that, that trust factor comes in, and now you're getting the bigger stuff, right? So understanding that there is a pathway, no matter how you create it in your shop, is important too.
Now, you guys with kids there and just in general, I imagine you have a safety program, or you have something tied to safety. And
We, don't. We look at cleanliness and comebacks. So we focus a lot on that. We actually have someone that we call the chaos monkey from the whole Netflix paradigm. And they go and assess the floor 4 times a week, I believe, and people are incented on that. So to a certain extent, cleanliness is safety, right? But no, we haven't gone down that path per se. And then from a comeback perspective, we track every comeback, whether it was a real comeback, and then people are incented off of that as well.
Okay.
And as far as safety goes, it's built into the training that these guys have already gotten, especially for my students. But as shop regulations themselves, we follow RPs pretty heavily from TMC.
Right.
So, wheel chock, safety glasses, all that stuff.
Yeah, that's right. I think you all had referenced even last night TMC. I think that's so your SRTs, your standard repair processes, everything is based on the TMC guidelines. Is that
part of why to me the training program is so? We're talking on this webinar about the training program and its importance towards recruiting and creating the techs that may not exist in the industry. The other component to that is, and we are plagued with this problem every day of that, 25 techs running around, and a lot of them are trying to beat time, and they're not doing things in a standard way, and they may not know how to do things in a standard way. So the TMC standard procedures is a way to, once you train and certify, to set the expectation that this is how we do a wheel seal. This is how we torque our nuts for our tires so they don't fly off on the road. And that there is, so my message is this: the other benefit to the training program is to standardize how we do work, to make us more efficient, to increase quality, to a certain extent, that element of safety.
Yeah.
And we're plagued with this issue of everybody doing something different. And so this is part of that.
So even though this is a program that started with high school students, getting them into the industry, you're now on board to also standardize everybody in the shop meeting this training criteria and these standards.
This was always a goal of ours. We had actually started the curriculum before Ian, but it was not a full-time position. And the people that were putting, and they put a ton of curriculum together, but there wasn't enough focus on it. So we weren't making enough progress. So this was one of those, it's always something we wanted to do. We actually spent a lot of time building the curriculum. He's revamping it now, but making someone dedicated, non-billable. You help us with diagnosis, you train people on diags, but he focuses on this. And he's working with them every day, hands-on working. So it's not, I don't think we said this, it's not a classroom thing, right? He's pairing up with 1 or 2 techs at a time, picking a specific procedure or job and training them on it to get them to a standard point or to get them up the training path.
Yeah, and that's one of the unique things as far as the training in shop now is most of your dealerships have a trainer that's upstairs. They go through certification processes for their specific OEM, but that's the only time you ever see that trainer. They get through the certification process, big group as a whole, bye, you're out the door. Versus I can enact that if I'm seeing everybody screwing up on the same thing, right? All right, let's all sit down and get this done and get it handled really quickly. But I'm also floating on the floor constantly. So if a technician needs something or isn't sure of how to do a procedure or next step in a diagnostic flow chart, if there's none available, I'm there as that warm hand on a daily basis so that they can get real-time help immediately instead of just somebody who lives in an office.
I imagine there's a direct correlation to efficiency and revenue having this role that you're in. Standardizing, being on the floor, coaching, helping. I imagine over time you'll see that. And I imagine that you have some pretty significant efficiency standards already that you follow.
We focused a lot on efficiency in the past, and we track it to date. And we learned a lot of that through Fullbay, frankly. But we actually track it less now. We actually just set the management team knows how to get these guys to be efficient. To your point, we've almost doubled revenue in the 4 years, and we did it without adding too many techs. So I don't have the exact numbers for you, but I think we have like 2 to 4 more techs than we did when we bought the business, and we've been able to double revenue. And so the question is, how did you do that? Well, in the end, by making better, more efficient techs that mess up less and have more time to actually, bill hours and do good work. And some of that is through what we're talking about here. And I'm very confident that as we continue this, that we will see more rewards from that.
Yeah.
And part of that is as techs stay with you longer and longer, they're more you're spending the time training them, getting them up to standard. Can you talk a little bit about things that you do in the shop or in the business as a whole that you think helps build that culture where people want to stay? And we always focus on how do we hire people more quickly. Well, if you really keep everybody that you got, you have to hire fewer people. And you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I'm a numbers person, and so there's lots of spreadsheets that exist that track all sorts of stuff. But one of the things I do is I try to come up with like comp plans and incentive plans that actually motivate in the right direction. And so for the technicians in particular, there's a weekly tech bonus, billable bonus. So top 2 billers get a bonus. If they consistently win, it's actually a significant amount of money, over a period of time. There's a quarterly bonus that pays a more significant amount for the top 2 quarterly billers, and then they get a little cool trophy that's like basically the Incredible Hulk ripping his he's holding a wrench and he's ripping his shirt off or something. We actually have handed out the Incredible Hulk sitting on a toilet, and that's the person who won the most number of PTO days in the past. I don't know if we do that consistently. And then we do an annual billable bonus, which is a vacation. So we'll send the technician and a significant other somewhere, and we actually didn't think this through exactly. We kind of had a number in our head of how much we were willing to pay. But the first person who won it, and we made a lot of pomp and circumstance around it, asked to go to Hawaii. And so we sent him to Hawaii. He went to the Big Island. No, sorry, he went to Oahu to look at the World War II memorial and whatnot. But yeah, so the top biller gets a vacation with his significant other. We do monthly lunches and dinners. So we have 2 shifts. So we do kind of like a family meal, if you will. We consider it like an all hands. We very much lighten the mood and lots of jokes. It's pretty inappropriate. And we sometimes have someone cook, and then sometimes we bring the food in. And then I make a point of taking each technician to lunch or dinner. My goal is about once every 6 months. And the point of that is to get to know them and make them feel like they're part of something. And so that's mostly for, we do an annual boot bonus, and we learn that from the Fullbay conference. And we're working and considering on some sort of tool allowance, annual tool allowance, but we haven't implemented that yet. We provide vacation. We do 401k match. We provide half of health insurance for the mechanic. So we do kind of full benefits and stuff like that. But yeah, so the big thing for us is we want them to feel like they're part of our family, and that we care about them. And once we get to know them, they know that we care about them. It's going to be unmistakable to them that we do.
I think everybody found especially some of those incentive plans for techs interesting. Somebody asked about service advisors. Do you do anything? We tend to talk a lot about technicians. They're not the only people in the shop. maybe do you do anything specific on the service advisor side?
Well, so there's kind of a funny story around that. So so our service advisors are sales. They're in a sales position. They get a nominal salary, and then they earn commission on their margins, right? And that can turn out, if they're good and business is there, it could turn out to be a six-figure position. And it's also a career path for technicians, right? So even with all that, our service advisors are getting upset that like we had all these rewards and like an appreciation for the technicians, and they gave us that feedback. So now we take them to Topgolf every quarter, and then of course I need to, and they wanted some sort of award. And so we dug deep on this, like, okay, we already reward them. They already get their commission. And so we figured out ways, and part of their issue is like, there's a big winner in our shop that like wins. Like if we just made it on billable hours or what revenue, this one person would win everything. So how do we highlight other ways that they make us successful? And so we found average margin, average ticket size. We found other ways to prize them and pay out on that, and we do that on a quarterly basis. And so they get their Topgolf drinking, event that's separate from the technicians, where we can, highlight their achievements as well.
What is the minimum margin for a service rider? Is there like a minimum to start?
We don't set it, and we started to talk about minimum weekly revenue, but we're looking for 55+%, and most of them are in the 60s. Consistently in the 60s. We actually found the person who does the lowest amount of revenue has consistently the much highest margin. And he's much smaller revenue, so we're not exactly sure what that's about.
Interesting.
And how many service advisors do you have?
So we have outside sales that kind of manage fleet. Mm-hmm. So there's 3 of those. And then we have 3 service advisors. Yeah, 3 service advisors. So 6 total folks.
Okay.
And we're growing fleet, and so that's kind of a different game in many respects. We've put our service advisors through, some of them through various stages of the elite sales training program, and that culminates with Sales Masters University, which is this 6-month cohort that they participate in. And it's like a $7,000 investment for us, but it literally has them practice phone calls and they get feedback on those phone calls, and they actually go to a 3-day sabbatical, offsite where I think they culminate their training there. It's a pretty extensive program that we offer to the right service advisors.
So it sounds like at the core, you're all about training and growing individuals for, to help the business, but it's also portable. These skills are portable. They can take them with them.
Yes. And yeah, so given my background, I consult and I do a lot of training myself. And so I haven't found the right management and leadership training program, but I think everybody should understand that to progress your career, you need to better yourself, and we will invest in that, even when it's a significant expense. And of course, we kind of expect something in return, but so we haven't talked about management, but if you want to grow into multiple locations, you need to build a bench of foremen and managers that recognize that they need to figure out how to be leaders and managers and deal with people, different kinds of people. And so I'm on the quest for that meaningful, specific training.
It's interesting that so many times when we talk about tech shortage, hiring, everyone just wants to talk about the transaction of making a hire. How do I find somebody and how do I get them in the door quickly? That's it. And you take a much more holistic approach. How do I really build a scalable business that attracts the right people over a long term, not just where do I post my ad, and then develops them, gives them incentives so they stay and I don't have to go backfill them. So.
Right. And especially if you're getting them young enough, like on these school programs, you're training them with what you want them to know before they get bad habits elsewhere, right? And since they're already in the hometown, it's not likely that they're going to leave because you're not looking outside of your general area.
Yeah. You're treating them with respect too. You're treating them fair with respect, and so you're actually building a better person too, while you're, like a contributor to the industry and society.
Right.
They're learning the right way to be treated at a company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of getting through a lot of these. We had talked a little bit about the regular meetings. So one thing that you talked about, regularly taking the guys out for dinners or for lunches. Do you do anything like, let's get all the shop together once a week for a meeting or every morning for a meeting, or do you think that's a little bit of a waste of people's time?
The feedback the only thing we do where we get the whole shop together is those meals, and that's like every 4 to 6 weeks. We do a daily stand-up for the service advisors, like all the back of the house, basically, or front of the house. But we get feedback that too many meetings is not effective and efficient, and it kind of annoys them. So we don't have a practice to like. And actually, before we bought the business, they had that. They had a Wednesday training session, which I don't think was really used for training. I think it was used for other stuff, but they all got together for that Wednesday. Yeah. We don't do that. And maybe we should, but yeah, I think the mantra is like less meetings, the better, as long as we're communicating and coordinating.
Yeah.
Right, and that goes on with the shop foreman too, is the front of the house has their meeting on a daily basis, but then foremen who are physically designating work to those technicians, the technicians know who to go to when they need their next job. They know what their job list is for the day, so they're already lined up. There's no mystery to it. So in a way, that's technically, but it's really quick and short and sweet.
Yeah, I mean, I think every business struggles with that, though. Mm-hmm. Chris has been on a good charge at Fullbay. Like, hey, let's really examine what meetings do we have. Do we really need to have them, or can we get them in short doses, direct, action and feedback, and then just go about, performing the work that we need to do. So.
Right, and understanding and getting that feedback too is important, right? Because if you're not sure what's going on in your floor, how can you enact any change in it?
Yeah.
I love this one because we know we always are going to get it. Any thoughts on a creative schedule? I know you have 2 shifts, but a 4-day work week, flex time. How do you think about creating a schedule for techs that really is appealing to them?
So we've entertained the 4-day work week, and it's problematic to a certain extent. We entertain flexible schedules, so like coming in later, leaving later. We run on Saturday. We used to run 24 hours a day, and we used to run on Saturday and Sunday. We've gotten rid of Sundays, but we run on Saturdays, and we allow people to opt into that. They have to kind of meet a certain standard, but we allow people to opt into that, and then they get paid time and a half, like out of the gate for that, as long as they didn't swap out a Tuesday for the Saturday. So they had to work the entire week, and then they'll get their time and a half for the Saturday. But the whole point of it was to incent them to work Saturdays so we can kind of finish. We run on a weekly cadence. All of our stats are based off of weeks, so we want to be able to close all our work on that week. So yeah, we entertain flexible schedules, but we're very careful about that because it's easy for folks to take advantage of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Are you primarily flat rate or hourly?
We have both. Most people are hourly. All the kids, just out of high school are hourly. Some of our kind of more experienced techs are flat rate. And we run into one issue with flat rate where we get some weird behaviors with flat rate where they're trying to beat hours. They only want certain jobs. And then now that we're reserving a lot of stuff for the younger folks to learn, like the easiest stuff is the stuff that they crush hours on, and they're not getting it. So they have some issues with that as well. You guys have suggested that we try to do some sort of QC bonus where they're getting an extra few bucks per billable until they mess up, and then you take that away for a period of time so that really focuses on quality. I think there's something to that. So we entertain both, but we constantly are dealing with the dynamics of flat rate workers needing to beat hours in order for them to kind of crush their week, right? And our billable bonus, our weekly, quarterly, and annual billable bonuses affects behavior. Like they wanna be a contender. They're paying attention to it, right? So
And they have daily access to that. Whereas in the changing room, there's a flat screen there that puts all the data, like who's at what for the week. Like is so,
So the
it's a
competition's
competition.
on.
Yeah.
Game
It's
on.
like, yeah, it's like the Hunger Games.
Yeah. The Hunger Games.
All right. Two other questions I thought were interesting is when you think about hiring service advisors, do you tend to source them anywhere different, or are those all internal promotion career paths?
So it's funny you asked that question. We've had issues with service advisors. Let me think about this. We have not been very successful in hiring them and keeping them, like them staying, just because we haven't found the right formula of, what we're looking for, I guess. And so one of the things that I really like is finding people from the restaurant industry. And the problem with that, of course, is they don't have the truck knowledge and experience. You got to train them up. So we've done different things, but the reason it's funny you asked that is today there is a woman that is taking a tour of the facility that is that I know from kind of a different life, but she's in the restaurant. She's a server in Boulder, and I have this hunch that if she's willing to work in this dirty environment with these uncomfortable customers, she could what she brings to the table would really benefit us, right? And so, to answer your question, I think that if you can train them and get them to learn the truck side, there are other industries you can pull from besides service advisors. Hiring classic service advisors from like a dealership has not worked for us, but we're always interested in like that really great salesperson at Circuit City or whatever whatever that's called now, right? That sold you that TV that did a really good job. Like, what about that guy, right? And so we look for that, and then we're willing, back to training, put them through truck training, sales training, and then of course teach them Fullbay and our process. And so we're doing that now with an individual that was a chef in the restaurant industry that came to us right before the pandemic hit. And then he's like, well, no one's got chef jobs right now, so I guess I'll keep doing this with you. And then we try to seek out people from the restaurant industry because we think that they have like the hospitality side of it.
Yeah, that's one of those where the personality traits and the attitude, you go hire for that and say, I can train you on the tactical thing and help you with that. So that's really interesting.
And the carrot is there. I mean, it can be very lucrative for them, right? Much more lucrative than the tips from the average restaurant. So that's kind of how I try to play it, but it's different. The customers are different, and the machines are different, and the facility is different. So
We in one of our other webinars, we actually have a bartender, and she's amazing. And she's like that bartender that knows how to make all the drinks or whatever, and you tell her the order, and she'll, I don't need to write it down. I know what everybody's getting.
Yeah.
And working for us, she's been amazing. Learned the app super fast, very courteous to customers, just really, really good. Shout out Erica. Anyway, but yeah, big fan of hospitality industry and servers.
All right. Well, I think we're probably coming to the end. Anything else you want to touch on or add before we start to wrap up?
No.
Well, guys, we really appreciate you coming in and sharing time with us. It was great to get a chance to spend some time with you last night and today in the studio. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. We just have a couple of slides that I'll finish up with here if I can get started. So I know that for most people or a lot of people on the webinar, you're already Fullbay customers, and we very much appreciate that, or partners with us on the Dieselmatic side. But for anybody that's not, we'd love to. First, thanks for joining us for the webinar. Customer or not, we love sharing our experience and our customers' experience. Hopefully, to all get better. Right? We all have very similar challenges, and I think it's important that we share knowledge and learn from each other. So thank you. But if you are not a Fullbay customer and you're interested, we'd love to give you a demo and show you how we can help your shop. I think we have on the screen a little survey. Please help us fill that out. We'd love to get in touch with you if you're willing to take a demo with us. In addition to Fullbay, I think everyone knows by this point, we've probably broadcast this enough. We also have a brand called Dieselmatic, where we'll help with the marketing for your shop. So everything digital marketing wise. We didn't even touch on that. I know you guys are using Dieselmatic as well. So that is digital marketing solutions for your shop, helping get the word out. Whether you're looking to grow transactional business, if you're depending on your location, or building more fleet business, we'd love to show you how we can help partner with you on the Fullbay and the Dieselmatic side. So please reach out, and we'd be happy to chat with you. And thanks again. Thanks, guys. And
Thanks.
Chris, what do you think? Next quarter, come back and do it again?
Yeah, heck
All
yeah.
right.
Bon appetit. Let's eat.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.